The old house groaned under the weight of the storm. Rain hammered against the windows like a frantic, desperate fist, and the wind howled a mournful song through the eaves. Inside, Marcus sat alone, bathed in the flickering glow of a single candle. The power had gone out an hour ago, plunging his world into a primal dance of light and shadow. He'd lived in this house his entire life, inherited from his grandmother, and he knew every creak and groan it made. But tonight, the sounds were different, unfamiliar. He took a slow sip of his lukewarm tea, the porcelain clinking softly against his teeth. It was then he heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping. It wasn't the rain, and it wasn't a branch scratching against the siding. This was methodical, deliberate, tap, tap, tap. It seemed to come from the hallway, near the bottom of the grand, curving staircase that dominated the foyer. Marcus set his mug down, his heart starting to thrum a nervous beat against his ribs. He strained his ears, listening over the roar of the storm. There it was again. Tap, tap, tap. He stood up, his chair scraping against the worn wooden floor. The sound stopped the moment he moved. Silence descended, thick and heavy, broken only by the tempest outside. "Hello?" he called out, his voice sounding small and fragile in the cavernous space. "Is anyone there?" Only the wind answered. He told himself it was just the house settling, his nerves frayed by the storm and the sudden darkness. He picked up the candlestick, the hot wax threatening to spill over his hand, and began to walk towards the hallway. The flame threw long, distorted shadows that writhed and danced on the walls, turning familiar portraits of his ancestors into leering ghouls. As he reached the doorway to the foyer, he peered into the gloom. The staircase was a spine of darkness leading up to the second floor. Nothing seemed out of place. He was about to turn back, to dismiss it as his imagination, when a flash of lightning illuminated the entire foyer for a split second. And in that blinding white light, he saw it. At the top of the stairs, a figure, tall and gaunt, impossibly thin, its limbs elongated and twisted at unnatural angles. It was just a silhouette, a stark black shape against the bright flash, but it was undeniably there. Then, just as quickly, darkness swallowed it again. Marcus's breath hitched in his throat. He froze, his feet rooted to the spot. His mind raced, trying to process what he'd just seen. A trick of the light? A shadow? It had to be. It couldn't be real. He took a hesitant step into the foyer, holding the candle high. The weak light barely pushed back the oppressive darkness. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The tapping started again. This time, it was closer, right behind him. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the living room he had just left. He spun around, a strangled cry escaping his lips. The living room was empty. The armchair where he'd been sitting was just as he'd left it. The teacup was still on the small table beside it. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, a physical pressure on the back of his neck. He backed away slowly, his eyes darting into every corner, every shadow. He kept his back to the staircase, not wanting to turn away from the room, but the image of the figure was seared into his mind. He retreated step by step until his back hit the cold wood of the front door. He fumbled for the lock, his fingers slick with sweat. He had to get out. But as his hand closed around the brass knob, he heard a new sound, a soft, wet scraping noise coming from upstairs. It sounded like something being dragged across the floorboards of the master bedroom, his bedroom. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee into the storm, but a paralyzing curiosity held him captive. That and a sliver of disbelief. This was his house, his home. He couldn't be driven out by shadows and strange noises. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, Marcus turned and faced the staircase. He had to know. He had to see. He began to ascend, one creaking step at a time, the candlelight pushing a small, trembling circle of safety around him. The air grew colder with each step he took, a damp, cellar-like chill that had nothing to do with the storm. When he reached the top landing, the scraping sound stopped. The hallway stretched before him, a tunnel of absolute black. The door to his bedroom was at the far end, slightly ajar, a sliver of deeper darkness in the gloom. He crept forward, his footsteps muffled by the thick runner carpet. The silence was now more terrifying than the noises had been. It felt expectant. As he drew closer to the bedroom door, a smell hit him. It was faint at first, but grew stronger with each step. A coppery, metallic scent, the smell of old pennies, the smell of blood. His hand shook so violently that the candle flame sputtered, nearly extinguishing. He reached the door and paused, his ear pressed against the wood. He heard nothing. No breathing, no movement, just the frantic pounding of his own heart. With a final surge of adrenaline-fueled courage, he pushed the door open. The room was dark, but a sudden brilliant flash of lightning lit it up like a photograph. The bed was a mess, the sheets and blankets torn and thrown about. The window was wide open, the curtains whipping wildly in the wind, letting the rain pour in. And on the wall opposite the bed, scrawled in something dark and wet, were words. The lightning faded, plunging him back into darkness before he could fully read them. He fumbled in his pocket for his phone, his fingers clumsy and numb. He finally managed to pull it out and switch on the flashlight. The powerful LED cut through the darkness, illuminating the scene with a harsh, clinical light. He pointed the light at the wall. The words were there, crudely written, the dark liquid still glistening and running down the wallpaper. It read, "You are not alone." A floorboard creaked directly behind him. Marcus didn't scream. The sound was trapped in his throat, a knot of pure terror. He didn't dare turn around. He could feel it. A cold presence, so close he could feel the absence of warmth. He could hear a faint, raspy breathing, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. His own breathing was ragged, his vision starting to tunnel. The phone slipped from his nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. The beam of light spun wildly, casting a chaotic strobe of images across the room. The disheveled bed, the open window, the terrifying message on the wall. And for a fraction of a second, as the light swept across the floor, it illuminated a pair of bare, gray feet standing right behind him. They were long and narrow, with toes that were far too long, ending in what looked like dirty, broken talons. Then the light from the phone died, and the room was plunged into absolute, suffocating blackness. The only sound was the storm outside, the soft, wet scraping starting again, and a low, guttural chuckle that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the old house, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The power was back on. The front door was unlocked and slightly ajar, swinging gently in the morning breeze. The house was silent, quiet, empty. Inside, the living room was undisturbed, save for a cold, forgotten cup of tea. Upstairs, the bedroom window had been closed. The sheets on the bed were smoothed over, and the wall where the terrifying message had been scrawled was pristine. Blank, there was no sign of a struggle, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. It was as if no one had been there at all. Marcus was gone, and the old house kept its secrets, waiting patiently for the next storm. Let me know in the comments what you think happened to Marcus. The rain had been lashing against the diner windows for hours, turning the neon sign into a blurry, bleeding mess of pink and blue. It was just past 2 in the morning, that dead zone between the last of the late-night crowd and the first of the early morning truckers. I was wiping down the counter for what felt like the 100th time, the scent of stale coffee and grease thick in the air. The only sounds were the hum of the ancient refrigerator and the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof. My shift was supposed to end at 3, but with the storm this bad, I knew the drive home would be a crawl. I just wanted to get done, get out, and get back to my tiny apartment. All that was left was taking out the trash. I grabbed the heavy black bags, the plastic slick and cool under my fingers, and headed for the back door. The moment I pushed the door open, a gust of wind and rain hit me full in the face. The alley was a dark, narrow canyon between our diner and the old brick building next door. The only light came from the single flickering bulb above the door, casting long, dancing shadows that made the overflowing dumpsters look like sleeping beasts. I wrestled the trash bags over to the dumpster, the lid groaning in protest as I heaved it open. The smell was awful, a mix of sour milk and wet cardboard. As I tossed the bags in, a flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the alley for a split second. And in that blinding white light, I saw it. Standing at the far end of the alley, almost completely obscured by the shadows and the downpour, was a figure. It was tall and unnaturally thin, dressed in what looked like a long, dark coat that hung off its gaunt frame. But it was the face or lack of one that made my blood run cold. Where a face should have been, there was just a smooth, pale, featureless expanse. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just nothing. I froze, my hand still on the dumpster lid. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the storm's rhythm. I blinked, trying to clear the image, but when I looked again, it was still there, and it had moved. It was closer now, maybe 10 feet nearer than before. It hadn't walked, it hadn't run, it had just shifted. One moment it was at the end of the alley, the next it was in the middle, standing perfectly still, its blank face aimed directly at me. The rain plastered its dark coat to its stick-thin limbs, but the figure itself seemed utterly unaffected by the storm raging around it. A primal fear I'd never known seized me. My breath hitched in my throat. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt like they were bolted to the slick asphalt. All I could do was stare, mesmerized by the sheer wrongness of the thing in front of me. Then it tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion that was horrifyingly human. It was as if it was studying me, considering me. Another flash of lightning, closer this time, and the thunder cracked right overhead, so loud it shook the ground. In that brief, stark illumination, I saw that its pale, smooth face wasn't entirely blank. There was a single dark line bisecting it vertically like a closed seam. My paralysis broke. I slammed the dumpster lid shut with a deafening clang and scrambled back towards the dinner door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely find the handle. I fumbled with it, my back to the alley, every nerve screaming that the thing was right behind me. I could feel its presence, a cold spot in the damp air. I finally got the door open, stumbled inside and slammed it shut, ramming the bolt home. I leaned against it, gasping for air, my whole body trembling. My rain-soaked hair dripped onto the linoleum floor. I stood there for a long moment, listening. Over the sound of the rain and my own ragged breathing, I heard it. A soft, slow scratching. It was coming from the back door. A rhythmic asterisk, scrape, scrape, asterisk against the metal. It was the sound of a fingernail, or something like it, being dragged down the outside of the door. My heart felt like it was going to explode. It was out there. It had followed me. It knew I was in here. The scratching continued, slow and methodical, a patient, terrifying sound. I backed away from the door, my eyes wide with horror, not daring to make a sound. I crept over to the small, grimy window in the door, the one we used to check for deliveries. My hand shook as I wiped away the condensation. I peered through the small circle of clear glass. At first, all I could see was the sheeting rain and the murky darkness. Then a pale shape filled the window. The featureless face was pressed right against the glass, not even an inch from my own. The dark, vertical line on its face was more pronounced now, and as I watched, frozen in absolute terror, the line began to widen. It split open, slowly, revealing an abyss of perfect, horrifying blackness. It wasn't a mouth. It was a void, an emptiness that seemed to swallow the dim light of the alley. And from that void came a sound, a low, guttural humming that vibrated through the glass, through the door, and into my very bones. I stumbled backward, falling over a stack of milk crates, and scrambled away on my hands and knees, crab walking across the kitchen floor, my eyes never leaving the window. The face stayed there, the black chasm in its center humming that soul-shaking note. I had to get out. The front was my only option. I pushed myself to my feet and ran, not looking back. I burst through the swinging doors into the main dining area, fumbling for my keys on the counter. My car, my sanctuary, was parked right out front. If I could just make it to my car. I unlocked the front door and threw it open, not caring about locking up. The storm hit me again, but this time I welcomed it. I sprinted across the small parking lot, the asphalt slick and treacherous. I ripped my car door open and threw myself inside, slamming it shut and locking it instantly. I threw the car into reverse, tires squealing on the wet pavement, and sped out of the parking lot without a second thought. In the rearview mirror, my heart pounding, I looked back at the diner. The neon sign flickered erratically. For a terrifying second, I saw a tall, dark figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light from inside. Its head was tilted, as if watching me go. Then, the neon sign buzzed one last time and plunged the entire diner into darkness. I drove all night, not to my apartment, but to my parents' house 2 hours away, never letting the gas pedal up. I didn't stop until the sun was rising, chasing the last of the storm clouds away. I never went back to that diner. I quit over the phone, giving no explanation. They could keep my last paycheck. Sometimes when it rains, I still hear it. That soft, slow scratching. And I see that smooth, pale face in my mind, the black line splitting open. I don't know what it was or what it wanted, but I know one thing for sure. It's still out there, waiting in the rain, and it knows where to find me. The journey began with a yearning for silence, a desperate escape from the city's relentless hum. Each mile deeper into the wilderness promised peace, a chance to reset, to breathe again. Elena, seeking solace, drove onward, her eyes focused, a mix of weariness and anticipation. The mountains called to her, a quiet refuge, her sanctuary far from prying eyes. She stepped out, stretching, taking a deep breath of crisp mountain air, a sense of relief washing over her. Inside, the air was cool, still. She sought warmth, both literal and figurative. A match struck, igniting the dry wood. The first spark, a promise of comfort. Golden light pushed back the encroaching shadows. For a moment all was well, all was calm. But peace is often fleeting. The sky began to turn, a canvas of dread. Heavy, dark clouds rolled in, obscuring the mountain peaks, swallowing the last vestiges of light. Elena, oblivious, sipped herbal tea by the fire, the warmth a stark contrast to the brewing storm. The wind howled, a mournful cry, rattling the cabin's old timbers. The storm had arrived. Then a sound above the roar of the rain, a soft, deliberate creak from the ceiling. Footsteps, faint yet distinct, echoing from the floorboards above. She wasn't alone. Her breath hitched. The warmth of the fire suddenly felt insufficient against the chill that crept in. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. Every shadow seemed to deepen, to writhe. Midnight arrived, cloaked in rain and an oppressive silence. Elena, flashlight in hand, moved cautiously. Through the rain-streaked glass, a form materialized at the forest's edge. A tall, hooded silhouette, the stranger, unmoving, watching. A primal fear seized Elena, gripping her heart. Panic surged. She scrambled, locking every door, every window, her movements frantic. Every light in the cabin flickered on, pushing back the oppressive darkness, but not the dread. Then a distorted reflection in the window, a figure standing directly behind her in the corner of the room. She spun around, heart pounding, but the room was empty, just shadows and her own racing pulse. A wet, scratching sound emanated from the doorframe, chilling her to the bone, followed by a raspy whisper barely audible above the storm. "Elena." Adrenaline surged. Grabbing a fire poker, she flung the door open, ready to confront the horror. The porch was empty. No footprints in the mud, despite the downpour. Nothing. She slammed the door shut, her mind reeling. Was it a trick of the storm or something far worse? Back inside, a chilling sensation. A long string of wet, dark hair dropped from a crack in the ceiling. It landed on Elena's shoulder, cold and clammy. She recoiled, a scream caught in her throat. The first light of dawn brought no comfort, only a desperate urge to flee. She sped away from the forest, the cabin a rapidly shrinking dot in her rearview mirror. But the horror lingered. A close-up revealed thin, nail-like scratches on the door's siding. Proof. A chilling reminder that it was real, not a nightmare. Years later, back in the city, the memory still haunted her. The mountains had left their mark. One night, she sat up in bed, a cold sweat breaking out, a faint scratching sound, and then the whisper clear as day in the dark silence of her room. Elena. The dread had followed her, a spectral presence, forever bound to her, a chilling reminder of the unknown.